Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another update to our MVC framework that we created in the past in two videos in the past. So if you haven't seen those videos, there are links in the description to the original and the first update, and this one will be the second update, and then we'll have a final update here. So I better write this as number 2 and number 3. So in this one, we're going to look at this stuff here. And in the third one, we're going to complete it and add a command line tool. This is similar to what Laravel has, and they call it Artisan. And CodeIgniter has something called Spark, I think. So we're going to create something that resembles those command line tools. That way we can create things like models without having to copy and paste the way we do here. We can just type in the using the command line to create migrations as well. So we'll add migrations as well. This is how you manage database versions or versions of your database. That way you can share these migrations with people you're working with if this is a collaborative project. Anyway, so with this in mind, let's grab the old content from our MVC here. So if you look, there's a link in the description to what we have so far of our MVC. So what I've done is in drive C, XAMPP, htdocs, I've put that folder MVC where I extracted that zip file. So in there, of course, there's the app and public folders. And then I have also loaded this in my browser, but make sure that your Apache and MySQL are both running in your server. Okay. And this is our usual homepage. So let's continue and fix a few things. Now here what I want to do is on almost every project we do logins and sign up, and we do it in a very similar way every time. So it would be nice to just have a standardized way of doing things so that we just put in a few lines of code and it's done. That way we don't spend too much time on the sign up and login. Also, the way we display model errors, we can improve on that so that it improves the sign up and login system still. And then pagination, we may need some styles because originally when I created the pager class, it was meant to work with bootstrap classes. So if you open the pager class right now, you see that there's this navigation class which can help you to customize things if you want to. But sometimes maybe you don't want to use classes, you just want to dial in some styles. So we can add that as well. Then we need some input validation. So currently how we do validation is each class or each model here in this case has a validate function which does the validation, and you put all these functions in there. So what we can do instead is we can streamline this process where we create these things once, and then we just tell it, we just put some rules here for our validation, just like we have allowed columns there. We can put a few rules for validating. That will include unique columns as well, how we deal with that as well. Okay, so without much delay, let's begin our tutorial. So to start with, I want to move a few things. So let's go to the core folder here. That's inside app core. If we go to the controller, make sure in controller, because I've seen some versions where maybe this may not be there, make sure that you have this part here and this extractor over here. So that's important. Just compare your code in the controller with this, it should match. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's go and move these guys. So the thing like pager, even though they are in the core folder and they're in the namespace core, I think it's better to move them to the model folder because that's where we look for all missing classes. So this one, pager, request, and session should all move into the model folder. So let me open that folder here, select pager, request, and session, and cut those guys, move them into the models folder and paste there. So that's a few things fixed already there. So great. Now let's try and design our login and sign up system. So the way we want things to work is once I hit the sign up button and we go to a page, so let's go and just look for one view at least here. We will delete these views, of course, eventually. We just want to give it a shot here. So we can imagine if we have a form right here. So let's just type in a form that's temporal, and we'll do method post like that. Okay, so over here we will have maybe an input for let's say email. This is for the sign up, for example. Let's start with that. So email, username, and then password. Okay, cool. So we have that. Let's put a few break tags here just to make sure they are on separate lines. And then we can put a button and say sign up. Alrighty then. So with this, if I come here now in our view page, we have this little sign up page. So the content doesn't really matter. What we want to do is just to see how this would work. If we go to the controller and we are inside the home controller here, this is what we have over here. Simple and straightforward. Now here at this point, all I want to do is first of all validate the data, and then so I want something as simple as user is equal to new. Here the namespace is controller, so we will need to do model user like that. And then since we have our user class now, we can simply do validate as always. So user validate like so. Now the validate function would be better if it returns true or false, of course. So I'm going to put this inside an if statement. If user validate as always, then here we want to pass in the post variable like that, because that's what contains all the data. And then this should be all. The only thing we need to do is send the user model to the view page as well. That way we can use it there as well. So here we can put an array and call it data, and we can put some stuff inside data. For example, the user class is equal to the user class like that. Okay, so now here after the validation, since we are signing up here, all we need to do is, let's see here, user insert like that, and then we insert the post data. So then once we insert the post data here, we do a redirect. So we say redirect, and then we redirect to maybe the login page, something like this. Okay, so we validate, we insert, and then we redirect. Now this already looks simple enough, which is good, at least. Now we can just put all of this into one function and call it a day. That way we don't even have to do this. All we need to do really is just say user sign up, like so. And then we pass in the post variable there, like so. And that's it. And then we can do the same for user login. That way we just put one line there, sign up, login, and forget, so we don't have to retype all this content up to this point here. So let's see how we can achieve that. So the first thing we want to do is change how we validate things. So I'm going to go to the trait model here. This is the one that contains all the functions that are common to every model that we create. So in here there's update, delete, and so on. So what I want to do is create another public function here. So we'll say public function, and I'm going to call this one a validator. Yeah, let's leave it like that. Now in the validator, we grab the data that was given, the rows of data that were given, and we don't really return anything. All we need to do is actually populate the errors, excuse me, populate the errors array there. So we have to start by saying this errors is equal to empty. So we empty all the errors while we are validating, okay? And then at the end of the day, if this is still empty, it means then we can return either true or false. So let's start by returning false, and then of course we do the if statement. This is exactly what we have really in the other. Let me see here. If I go to the user model, that's exactly what we have. But instead of us doing this, we should just write the rules for that. So I'm going to copy this. This is what I really wanted here. Let's copy that into the model.php right here, like so. So if empty, then return true. Otherwise, we return false. It means the validation failed. So now in the user model, for example, all we have to do here is just say return this validator, and that's it. So our validator is here, and then what we want to do is we want to create in the user, for example, this is the user. Keep in mind that whatever you put here is specific. In each model is specific to that model, but what is in model.php is common to every model. So for example, there is this protected item called table, okay, or table is equal to users, for example. So since it's protected, it's part of, it can be accessed by any of these functions in here. So let's add another one here. We have allowed columns here, right? But let's add some validation rules. So I'm going to duplicate this like so, and this one is going to be validation rules. So we put them here in the user model, for example. This will be like the default model that we copy from. Other models will copy from this when we create new models. But once we create the command line tool, then there'll be no need to do that copy and paste. It will just create as a template which we can edit from. So the validation rules here will be the column name and how we are going to validate it. So if it's not included here, the column is not included in here, then it will be omitted from validation. So here we're just going to do this. We don't want to really validate the password, so let's just try maybe put maybe username here, something like that. Username and email, and what else? I don't really know. So what we want to do here is we want to put an array. So this is like an array, but within here we'll put an array like so to put all the validation rules that you would like. So here I'm going to do this. That way it's clear what's going on. So there are validation rules. So for example, you can call the rules anything you want. This is entirely up to you. So you can say alpha, for example. This would be short for, these have to be alpha, like the letters of the alphabet. And then this one is numeric, something like that. So there's a rule alpha, there's also a rule numeric. You can even put rules like alphanumeric as well, so that you hold that in one line. And then let's add alpha maybe symbol, something like that. So we have alphanumeric, alpha symbol, and you can also have alphanumeric symbol, something like that. So all these are rules that you would like. Also, you can put a rule like unique or something like that. So for example, if this is an email, that's how it should be validated. You can also put a rule like email. Okay, so that can be a rule to show that this is an email to be validated in that specific way. So let me see what else we were validating here. Email, password, and terms and conditions. Okay. Let's see here. We're validating the, what else is validated like this? So could be email, could be a website, etc., etc. That's up to you. So what you do here is to give these specific rules. So I'm going to copy these rules here that we've bunched up, and I'm going to go to the validator. Actually, we can use these as something like this. So we put this here. Oops, what have I done? Yeah. All right. So here we can then paste some of these rules. So you can say rules include, and then we type all of this, right? Alpha. Let's see here. What is going on? Let me try this one. Okay, I wanted to remove this. All right, so then we can put that there. Oops. Hey, why am I fussing about this? Okay, so these are the rules that can be included here, just to remind the user when they're typing the rules down here that this is what's possible here. All right, great. All right, so there could be other custom validation rules you can put here. For example, I think these are the common ones. So let's put here password. I want to validate the password as well. This one here, I will create one called longer than 8. So as you can see, the rules are up to you how you create them. It would be a good idea, instead of putting spaces, you put underscore, because really it's not even necessary. So you could use dots instead. It doesn't really matter. That's entirely up to you. This is just keys to help understand which one is which. Alpha.numeric, alpha symbol, and so on. but you could just combine these instead. So let's leave one alpha, let's leave one numeric, let's leave one symbol. I think that will be much better. Alpha, numeric, symbol. I think these can just be combined like so. Let's see here. We have alpha, numeric. Numeric is repeated here. Unique, symbol. And that's it. Okay. Let's put longer than 8 there as well. Could be a valid one. Longer than 8 chars. Something like this. So you can make as many as you want. Longer than 8 chars, longer than 10 chars, that's up to you. So in this case, the email, for example, to validate that, we just need the email validator. And let's look at the username. The username could be alpha instead. And there's also alpha space, because sometimes you don't want spaces, but you want alpha and alpha space. So username could be alpha space in here. That way you can allow spaces as well. Okay, so the email, we just need it as email. We need it as unique as well. So let me remove symbol. Let me remove numeric. Let me remove the other ones like so. I was just putting them so that we can list them properly. Okay, so this is how you would create your validation rules. My email should be of type email and it should be unique. A username should be alpha, without numbers, of course, and spaces. And if you wanted to include numbers, you'd add a second one and put numeric there. You can leave commas here so that it's easier to duplicate them. It will still work fine. And the password should at least be longer than 8 characters. So if you want more rules, you can simply go to the model validator and add the rules there. So what we need to do now is to check if this variable exists. So we'll say if, right, not empty. So this one will be this validation rules. So if any model doesn't add this there, then there will be no validation that will be done. So this is only done if, and then if no validation is done, the errors thing will be empty and then we'll return true here, which is nice. But if it does, then we're going to go through it. So we're going to do a for each loop, and this is going to be this validation rules. Let's remove that $sign there as key and value pair. So remember that the key and value pair are these. The key is the name of the column, and then the values here are another array as well. So we have to loop through that with the rules. So come back here, and this will be the rules over here. So key, rules, or key, you could call that column, and then rules. Okay, so once we loop through all the rules, we are looking for specific values in here. So there's also one that I missed, which is the required, right? So one of these is required, right? We also require the username, and we require a password as well. So let's put that here among the rules. Okay. So of course this means that if there's no email supplied, then we'll give the user an error. So I'm going to go back here and let's go through the rules. So the first thing we have to check, also there are some where you don't really want to validate anything, but Oh yeah, then you can just put the required to make sure it's not empty. Okay, great. So that's fine. So we check the rules here. And we're going to put a switch statement to deal with that. So let's do a switch right there. And this one will deal with each rule that we have. So there's a for each loop here that goes through the column name and the rules. And then we will need another for each loop to loop through the rules themselves. So rules, and we don't really need the key here, we just need the rule itself. So the reason we are having another loop here is because the first loop is going through these keys here, and inside each one there's another array, so we are looping through the array. So let's imagine we are looping and we start with the email, and then within that we loop through all of these. Everything must check out before we go to the next. So when we get here, I need to just duplicate this part here and delete this one. That way this goes inside the for each loop, like so. Okay, so we have a rule here. Now if the rule is, so this is where our rules come in, where we create what the rules do. So required is a rule there. So we have to make sure that the rules we put here do exist. If they don't, then it's going to do something else. So it's up to you on the default here, which means that rule was not found. So if a specific rule that was given here was not found in here, this is the one that will run. So you can decide if you're going to throw an error and say that rule was not found or something. You can do that. So that's up to you. Maybe for future proofing this, we can actually do that. So once you find an error, you add it to this. So for example here, default, and we're gonna call this one rules. It talks about the rules, and it say the rule, and then we're going to concatenate the rule name was not found. Okay, so that could be an error that we are returning as well. This rule was not found. But then if the rule is required, then we need to do some stuff. And what we're going to do here is grab this column. That's where we're going to put that there. So if it's this error is for the email, it's going to be keyed email and then the error itself. So required says the column. Now we don't know what this column is named except for the thing here, so we have to use variables here. So I'm gonna do column here. So the column, and then that column is required. Okay, we don't need to put exclamation points there. Right, very good. So we go back to here. We have that email. So email column is required. Now, this looks okay on paper, but there's a slight problem here. You may want your own alias to this, but let's see how this works before we even go deeper than this. So the column, that column is required. That's fine. So now in order to test the requirement, you just have to look at the data. So remember we have data here. So we're going to say if empty data and then column, whatever that column is, then we return that. So if it's empty, we do this because it's required. So that's practically it here. Let me move to another one. So I'm going to duplicate that and duplicate a few times. So let's go to another rule. Here, another rule could be email, for example. We just need to know that it's a valid email. So we don't need to check if it's empty here. We can just say if, what do we put here? So data column is the information. So we're going to use filter var. So the variable we're filtering is that one. And then we put a filter var validate email like that. And then we put a not. So if not a valid email, then we can say that email is not valid, because we know this is an email. So we don't need to name the column name. That email is not valid. Let's do that. Or you can just say invalid email. Simpler and straightforward. Invalid email address. Okay, great. So let's come back. Let's do one more. There's unique is a bit special, so I'm going to leave that for a bit. Let's do alpha space. So if we have alpha space like this, we're just going to need to, okay, every value is in column, data column here. We're going to need to do is use a regular expression. So we're going to do preg match. So if not preg match, so that's the pattern we need there. Let's put a not there, and our subject is here. So in order to match this, we have to do A to Z, capital A to capital Z, and then close that bracket, and let's put a space like that. Okay, so that's alpha space, and we need to make sure this happens from the beginning to the end. So let me put a plus $sign there and a caret at the beginning. So from the beginning to the end, but this we need to trim because sometimes the data can come in with leading and trailing spaces. So let me do that here as well, just in case filter var doesn't do this. Okay, here we don't have to do it because it takes into account that. Right, so that's great. Now I can duplicate this one more time. Let me reduce this to alpha. So there's alpha, and this one, all we need to do is just remove the emptiness there. Actually, we do need these combinations because if we are matching just letters, then it's something different than matching letters plus numbers. Okay, so we will have to change that and add those rules. In any case, let's see here. Okay, that seems okay. So let's go ahead and put one more alpha space. There should be symbol. Now this is rare actually. There's very rare times when you just need a symbol. So let's do this longer than 8 chars. So longer than 8 chars, you can just say if string length okay, so if the length of the string, let me grab this. Let me grab the trim as well. Don't forget to remove the string part. Okay. So if the string length is less than 8, if it's less than or equal to 8, or maybe just 8 like that, less than 8, what can we call it that's shorter? Greater than 8 chars. Not less than 8 chars. That's even longer. But I think it makes more sense. Okay, so now instead of putting the column, what we can do is say, let me see here. Let me remove the column for readability's sake. I'm going to instead say UC words, UC first, like that, so that I capitalize the column name. And just put, let's say this is email, let's just say email is required. Whatever is required, whatever is required. So here, alpha should only have, so we say here, should only have alphabetical letters. Okay, then this one, it's the same thing. Let's put that S there. And spaces. Okay, so should be longer than 8. Okay, something like that. What else? Okay, I think that does it. So we also need to add alpha, some other stuff, alphanumeric, alpha symbol, alphanumeric symbol. So let's go here, alphanumeric, and then we go alpha numeric symbol, and then alpha symbol. Okay, so all of these are the rows that we can do. So let's see here. There's alphanumeric, this one. Now there are also combinations of alphanumeric space, alphanumeric symbol, so you can add them over time as you use this thing. So let's see here. So there's alphanumeric, just 0 to 9 there will do. And then here again, let's remove that space, 0 to 9. But then we want to add some symbols. So it's up to you to decide what qualifies as a symbol. So it's better to put a slash and before the symbol, like the dash, the underscore, the $sign, the %sign, the star, the bracket, opening bracket, the closing bracket there, and maybe open again and closing there. So as you can see, I'm escaping every symbol by putting a slash before it, just like that. So you can add as many symbols as you'd like. This is to make sure that they're not regarded as special characters there. What other symbol did I forget? $sign is there. The and symbol, especially for maybe song names and stuff, could be useful. Alpha numeric symbol. Let's put a space in there. I think these should probably come with symbol. Space could be part of a symbol. And alpha symbol is exactly like this one. The only difference is there are no numbers. So I'm going to paste that and just remove the numbers. And yep, that looks about right. So let me grab this. Let's make sure we put them here as part of the list. Alphanumeric, alpha symbol. There we go. Okay. All right, so far so good. These are the rules, quite a number. Now this can go on for quite some time. So anything new, you just put there and so on. And then we just check if there are any errors and return the appropriate thing there. So there's valid data here. Actually, this works. We should just change it to validate like that. Okay. Now there's one more that we forgot, which is unique. So what we're gonna do is this. Let me deal with that here. So this one is unique. Now unique is where we check in the database to see if something is unique or not. So we already did that in the user table here. So I'm just going to copy that part. Oh no, we did not do that. Okay, interesting indeed. So unique, we just do if this. So we're going to do this. And then we run a query, or we run a first like that. And then we just need to know what the column name is. So for the column name here, I will put the column there, and then that's the key now, and then the value is this one, data column there, like so. Boom. So if the column, let's say this is email and then data email like that, if we do find a result here, then there's an error. Now the only problem with this is if there's an ID, for example, in the data here, it means this is a let's imagine you sign up with an email, and then let's say it's email@email.com, and then you want to edit your profile. So that email of yours is going to exist in the table. So if you try and save, if we leave it as it is, it will tell you this email is already in use, which is not correct. So in unique column, this one will say should be unique, like this. Okay, maybe we leave it there, should be unique. So the difference now is that if, for example, there's an ID in the thing, it's supposed to account for that ID, okay? So let's go back to first here. Let's see. All right. So there's an ID there. There's I wanted to actually add something new to the there's data not there, right? There's data not. Okay, so that's great. It already exists as I wanted it, so that's good. So what we're gonna do is run a query here. So I'll do that, and let's put an if statement first and say if there's a key named ID. So we're gonna say if not empty, ID. Okay, now the problem with ID is not everyone uses ID as their primary key. So we have to keep that in mind, which is the same here as well. So what we need to do is put a primary key instead. So I'm going to go to the user model here. The same way we have protected table, we can have protected primary key. In our case, our primary key will be the ID. Now, if the primary key does not exist, then we assume it's the ID. So in case somebody forgot to write that, then it will just assume it's the ID. So everywhere we used ID in model.php, we should account for that. So here, instead of putting ID, I'm going to say this primary key, like so. Actually, what we would do is we're going to run a function, because if it doesn't exist like right now, then that would be a problem there. So wait, primary key ID, yeah, because if it doesn't exist here, we'll be in trouble. So what I'm going to do instead is create a function. This one is a protected function because it won't be accessed from outside. It's just for in here. So say get primary key, like so. So we forgot to write the function word. So this is going to return this primary key. Now, if this does not exist, so we put 2 question marks, then we return ID like that. That way we are just making sure that we always get what we need. So get primary key is my go-to here. So I'm going to go here, this, get primary key, open, close, like that. So whatever the primary key, in this case, it will be ID. So if not empty data ID, if the primary key exists in this data, it means we are editing. So this is edit mode. And then we'll do an else statement. And this one is insert mode, like that. Okay. So for insert mode, if we do that if statement there, then we add that. Otherwise, let me duplicate. So that didn't go very well. In edit mode instead, if I do this, in edit mode, we have to include a second array. So this is the first array here that ends there. Then we put a second array here, like so, to make sure that it matches this, but it shouldn't match that. So we're looking for, let's say, an email that is not yours, but is the same as somebody else's. So in this case, not ID. So the ID is coming from here, data, this, like that. So on here, I'm going to put this. Okay, what I would do here is I'm just going to say key is equal to, that way I can avoid retyping this all the time. Key is equal to this one, like so. This, get primary key. Then I can replace this with key instead, like so, just so it's shorter. Then I'll grab that. So data key, which is the, if there's a primary key, that's the value. So in here, we will have our column name, which is the key, and then the value is data key, like so. All right, so if there's a result here, then this should be unique, and so on. So hopefully this works out. We'll see if we get any errors in the end, but that's our final code there for validation. So that's now validate. So which means here, validate loses value. We don't need to actually have this function in here because all of this has been replaced. So we'll remove this function from our users model. So all we need to do now is just put our validation rules and we are done. So there we go. So let's give it a test run and see how things work. Now, another final thing before we deal with, I need to know how to return errors if they exist. So here we'll create a public function because we will be we'll be using it from outside. So public function will say get error, like that. Okay. So this get error is going to check if an error exists with a specific key, like that. So I'm going to say, if nothing happens here, we return an empty string, and then otherwise we'll say if not empty, this errors, because that's where all the errors live. And then given that specific key, so if that part is not empty, then return it. So we're gonna return this like so, like that. Okay, so that's how we get a specific error from, because remember that all errors will be stored in here, and if we have a specific error, we can just get it like that without having to put all those if statements and stuff. Okay, great. I think this is looking good. So far what we've done, displaying errors that has been solved, and this part here. So we're remaining to see how a sign-up system would work in this case. So I just want to look at the validation rules here. Also, get error is one thing. There could be times when you want to, when you want to get all the errors, it's simple. You just grab it from the errors thingy there. Okay, so that's okay, I guess. So let's go here. If I click, let's try. So what I would do in this situation is, if there were errors, for example, let me duplicate that, let me duplicate that, and let me duplicate this. On this one, I just want to, let me put a div over here. Actually, this is what I should have done here. And then inside this div, I will do echo out and say user, and say get error, and then tell it what error I want to get. This one is for username, like that. Okay, so that's how we use that function now. So I'm gonna grab this, wait a minute, and put it here. Boom. Put it here as well. Boom. And just change what we are looking at here, and password here. That way we don't have to put any if statements here, but we need to define what user is. So we can just here instantiate user. But remember that the errors are inside the instantiated version of user that we are already using. So if we make a new instance, it will be empty, no errors. So what we need to do is supply it. That's why we have supplied it over here. This is not valid code because we don't have this method anywhere. But like this, things will still work. The validate function will still work. That's great. And so on. So let's see how this works in practice. Let me try and just click sign up over here. Okay, so finally we have issues. So require failed to open stream. So this is a PDO error, and this is one thing I forgot in the other project there to do. So just go to the database.php class there, and every instance of PDO, select that. Wherever you said PDO, just move to the left and put a slash like so. That's because PDO is not in any namespace, and this is the model namespace, so that's why that's happening. So we can close that database thingy there. Great. So let me refresh one more time and resend. So as you can see now, the errors are showing as intended. So username should only have alphanumerical letters and spaces. Invalid email address. Password should not be less than 8 characters. So this is good because I can easily change or alter how I validate by just putting different rules. So for example, here it says, okay, that's invalid email, required. So I think the required one, let's go here for a second. Let's modify things a bit. I would prefer that the required, because you see, let's say here all these rules are broken. Let's say required email, the email is not valid, so it will write invalid email. And then first of all, it will run this and discover that, yeah, there's an error there, and say, and it will store that error as the column is required. So here, let me do the same thing here. Let's just say UC first, like that, is required. Okay. So once that happens, it will then override that rule with this one. Email is invalid because it's also invalid as well as empty. But I would rather have required as the last thing it writes. So what I'm going to do is move it to the very, very end so that it becomes the final straw. No. Okay, let me make sure. Where is this break? One more break and we are good to go. That's great. So required goes to the end. That way you would notice that the errors would change or not. Should only have alphabetical letters and spaces. Great. But what about required? Okay, I see. So this didn't matter at all. Now let me undo that. So sorry for wasting that time. Let me redo up to this point. Oh, what's happening? Okay, the reason it didn't matter is because here, how you order them is what matters. So the order here does matter. So it would be nice to just put required at the end, like so, if you want it to be prioritized in here. So as you can see now, it says username is required, email is required, password is required. So that's a secret to getting that message like that. Until I write something, let me write an email, and then you to say email is invalid, which is great. As you can see there, email address is invalid. Okay, now to see odd values, of course, we already have that function. If we go to the home view here, if I put value on any of these, instead of type, let me change that to value and do this. It's say old value and close that. This one is old value for username and then email password. So email and password. That way at least we still have that. So refresh and see. So we have that old value there. It says invalid email. So if the username is correct and everything is good, you see no error comes up there. But let's say I put some numbers there. It's going to say username should only have numerical letters and spaces. Okay, so we can put a space here and put two names, of course, I guess. And there it is. So it's all good. It has alpha. Where is it? Username alpha space, actually. So if I change this to just alpha and I put spaces there, it's should only have alphanumerical letters without spaces. So let's ensure that, because somebody would be surprised what's going on. So alpha is this without spaces. Okay, that's great. At least that's a better error. So there we go. Should only have that without spaces. Very nice. Password is required. Okay, let's add a password. Let's add a short password, right? Password should not be less than 8 characters. Okay, Great. And that error is gone. Let's remove that error for username. So the only error that remains is invalid email address. So things are working well for our validation. This is great. You can use this as you wish. Now, if you come up with different new rules, all you have to do is come here into the model.php and add those rules. And you don't have to delete them for every project. It just means for the next project, it will have more rules that you can use at your disposal. So you just use the rules that you want to use in that project and leave the rest, and you can keep adding more as you gain experience. All right, so that does it for the model validation. What about the uniqueness? That could be another issue, so we will see that a bit later. But now let's try to actually sign up, right? So if we were signing up for real, this would need a users table, and the primary key will be ID, right? So let's see what else we can do before we go to that level. Actually, no, there's nothing else. So we just need to create a table and add that data just for testing. All right, so in the allowed columns here, let's add one more column there. And this one is going to be username, like so. So username, email, password. This is usually the default. So that's why we have even these rules over here. Okay, so that's great. What else did I miss here? All right, so that now that we have that, now when we learn about migration, this is where migrations would come in handy, where we want to create a table. We can easily create many versions of the same table and then revert to the one that previously worked. In case when you update things don't work, you can revert back to another one. And if you really want to go into it, you can put seeders as well instead of just migration, something that can populate your database with dummy data for testing. Or you can use that to save the state of your current website, the database state at that point. So we'll see how we can do all of that. So now let's make sure that a sign up can happen. So let's try and create a database. So I'm going to do localhost and do PHP my admin. So I go to my PHP admin page. Let me create a new database here real quick. I'm creating too many databases. Okay, so we'll call this one MVC DB. That's what I'll be using to test my MVC going forward. So there's MVC DB there. Let's create a table called users. We don't need many columns in here. We just need the ID as the primary key. And then now over here, I want to actually make this custom. So it's not just ID. So what I'll do is I'll make user ID there like so. I'll write it as user ID. That way I can see where the problems are when trying to shift. I want us to change every reference to ID. For example, here, we change that to... oh, wait a minute. There's this ID column here, right? So it does exist already. But where do I get that? Wait a minute. ID column. Alrighty then. Okay, so this actually works just fine because I didn't realize that we thought of this already, that we can put ID and then data, and then we can even change the ID column if it's not ID like that. Okay, this is good. We can make it more automatic by just having it put the ID column in here, primary key. All right, anyway, either way, this is fine. Where was I? Now I'm forgetting what I'm trying to do. Okay, so it's not a serious thing after all. So I'm just gonna put ID there and then put username and put email and put password. Like so. So now let's deal with the column. This one should be auto increment, primary key. This is variable character, variable character, variable character. This username maybe 30 characters, email 100, password maybe 255, like so. Okay, great. That's looking good. Then let's save. And now we can go and put a unique key on the email, for example, because we'll be using that to search our user. If you'll be searching usernames as well, you can add an index, but this is for demonstrative purposes only, so this is fine. Yep, there we go. Goody. And then here now we want to create a whole sign up system. So if I now go to where is this? User.php there. So the sign up function would only make sense inside our user model because only users do sign up. The rest of the models, like maybe you have a books table, you don't need to use the sign up thing. So the function should only be in here. So we're going to call it a public function and we're going to call it sign up. Then we will have another public function. This one is login, like so. Okay, great. So in here, the only thing I want the user to pass in or you to pass in is just the post variable, and that's it. So the rest should sort itself out. Now, if we go to the sign up, where did we go here? The home page where we are trying to sign up. The only thing we should leave really is that. That's it. The rest should not be. This is fine because we need that user model that we created. So that's okay. So I'm going to grab all of this here. Let me remove that. So this is the only way it should look like this, actually. Now, if I'm even I want to even reduce this code, remove one more line, I can just use this one here. So let me paste what I've copied first before I copy something else. So I'll paste that here. So this data was passed in. Now I don't need to write it as a super global like this. So this is just a variable. So remember that. I'm just going to change it to data. I think it's much easier to deal with like that. And let's come back to the home page. So I will copy this instead and put it here. That way it's directly instantiated into an array location like so. So I don't need this. Then of course I'll need to change that reference to that. Let's say sign up and boom. And that's really it. So this is all we're gonna do in the sign up page. So we are imagining this is the sign up page, and this is all we'll need to do. And now if I go to the user thingy here, once we run the sign up, we have to instantiate the user. Actually, we don't need to instantiate. We are already in the user thingy here, so we just need to use the word this, because this is the instance we are in right now. So we say this validate, this insert, this, no, just redirect, login. Simple and straightforward. There we go. So if you need to change something or where it redirects to once you are done signing up, you can just come and change here in the user model. You change that and that's it. Okay, so back to the home page. That's good. I think that works very well. Is that really all? I think that actually all. Except when we are signing up here, before, if password exists, then we need that, right? We are assuming password does exist. So we're going to do data password is equal to password hash, and the string is inside data password, like so, and password default. All right, that's about it, really. Now, if there's a column that does not exist, it will just be removed during the insert process, because we already put that there. Where is this? The insert here. So it removes unwanted data already. So in that case, we can always add the date here. Just in case it does exist, then it will be added as well. So we're going to do date and say YMD, capital H, small letter I, and small letter S. So that's how you write the date. So in case the date is there, it will be added to that. Now, sometimes you may be using date created. So let's just put all of those there. Whichever is there at that time. Actually, just date created is enough. Like so. Okay, that's great. Now, if there are other columns that you need, you can add columns here. So you can say something like add extra columns here. Okay, that way you can add more there, and that's about it, really. So if I now come here and let's just try to sign up. So let me put a valid email address at email.com. And then if we redirect ourselves to the login page, it's going to tell us page not found, right? But that's okay. We're just testing for now, so that's okay. So I'm going to do a sign up. Email should be unique. Really? Okay, so if it's telling me that, it means things are working well. But let's look at the database and the config. Which database is it looking for? Okay, so it's MyDB. So I didn't know. Wait a minute. How is it even connecting? I don't think I have MyDB anywhere. So let's see what's going on here. Oh, look at that. I do have MyDB. Insane. Okay, so let's change that to MVCDB, since that's what we are testing with right now. So I'm going to try this again. Boom. View not found. Okay, so it worked. If I go in here, I will see there's a password. I need a password that I can remember, actually. So let's go back and delete this info by truncating the table. I need a password I can actually use. So let's go back. Okay, so we are finally beginning to see some errors here. So it says undefined array key, email. So 175, why is it complaining? Let's go to 175. Model. Where is 175? Right here. Okay, so it's trying to validate, right? Okay, so we need some rules here. So if we shouldn't be validating when the data is empty, but we don't need errors either. So I'm going to say if empty, but wait a minute, no, that's not even the problem. So this just means, okay, I've seen my weakness here. I don't actually check if the thing works or it exists or not. I see. This part is importante. Okay, so data column here should exist before we even go through the rules. So data column, so I'm going to copy this. I'll come here and say if empty. Actually, not empty. I'm looking for if not is set, because I just want to know if it's set or not. That's it. That's really not whether it's empty or not. If not is set, then let's do continue like that. So what continue does is it continues the loop. So continue. So the for each loop, before it even gets to this part, if it notices there's this data does not exist, it just skips the, let's see, validation rule. Actually, there's not even point into, there's no point in coming here either. So if not empty, validation rules, data column. Yeah, I think it's okay here. Let's see if these errors will disappear. Okay, so it keeps redirecting, and that's the reason why. So at least our errors are gone. That's good. But let's go back to our user PHP here. So when signing up here, we need to, let's go to the home page here. Before trying to sign up, we need to put an if statement. Let's use the request. I'm going to say request, and we will say posted. I think that's the function we use. Now I need to define what request is equal to. This one is inside the, is it in the model class? It's inside core, I think. Core request. I forgot the new keyword. Okay. So a new request, if something was posted, then we come here. So that's how we do it from the request. In the request model, that's where this function is. So it just checks if something was posted, and then it does this. All right. So let's refresh, or let me go back to the home page. Okay, cool. So more errors here. It's saying undefined variable data on line 24. So let's check that. What's going on? Line 24, data. Okay, so data is not there because everything we're adding to data is long gone at this point. So we just want to instantiate that and just do this. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, now undefined variable user on line 5. So it doesn't know what user is. So which means user must always be there before even whether we posted something or not. So let's just move it up here and remove this instantiation there. We don't need it anymore. There we go. Okay, so that should solve our problem. And there we go. All right. This is great. Actually, what we should do, the controller should already exist. So let me save this as signup.php. Let's go here, copy everything from homepage, paste in the signup. Let me just change this to signup, and this one as well to sign up. So we don't want to put too much already, right? We just want a bare bones implementation of the sign up page, because we want a lot of flexibility still for whoever is using the this MVC framework to have a lot of control. So back to the home page, and on the home page, let's remove all of this. We don't need it anymore. Now it's on the sign up page. Then we can also put a sign up. Let me copy this, a sign up view. That way we already have it. .view.php. Wait, what has happened? Oh, okay. So the home page, we remove all of this. We don't need that. And on the sign up view, we just say sign up page view, something like this. All right, let's put some placeholders here. This one is username. Let me copy this to here. Username, that's the error. The password there. Password, email. Okay, just as some placeholders, simple stuff here to just so that's the home page, right? Undefined variable data on line 17. Where is that? Home PHP. Here we don't need that. The home page. Okay, good. Now if we navigate to sign up, you could call it register if you want, but that's up to you. So there we go, we have this sign up page. Maybe we should call it register. I don't know. It's up to you. Most people call it register, right? Okay, sign up and log in. So now that we are able to sign up, we need the login controller. So we're going to copy everything from sign up, go to controllers, paste, save, capital L, login.php in the controllers. That way at least we have a few more controllers here. Let's go to the sign up view, copy everything, new view. Let's paste, and this one will be small letter login.view.php. And then finally we should have the log out, because really we always do that. Once we log in, we want to log out. It's better you are able to just delete the controllers you don't want than trying to recreate them all the time. So there is the logout class. Just like there we have logout, and we don't need a view for this particular one. Once you visit this one, logout.php, this one really is just for logging out. So here you would do something like request. No, actually the session, we can say logout. There's already a function that does that for us. And then we just need to redirect the user to the login page. Simple as that. So session logout, but we need to define what session is here, since we have not done that. So let's do session is equal to new. This is inside the core session, like that. Simple and straightforward. Okay, so at least we have these base controllers to start with. Let's deal with the login one here. I'm going to change all references to login like so. The user model remains. Let's change that, capital L. Okay, now if something was posted, this remains as it is. then user login. And just like that, it looks exactly the same as the sign up and the login. So there's some universal connection here, which is great. Now let's go to the user side, and exactly what we have here. This is the user model. Let's paste in there and try to get here. Maybe we redirect to the home page instead of the login page, something like that. Okay. Now we don't need to add extra columns here at all because we're just logging in. So confirm user details or something. So we don't need to validate either. So here we just need an if statement that asks the question password verify. So I'm going to do if password verify. So we're looking for the actual password, and this is the one that was given in here. But then we need the hash version of the password. That's the one in the database. So confirm password here. And then we can redirect to the home. Here, once password verify has worked, we don't need to hash any passwords. So let's remove that. Here we just need to log the user in, and we do that using the session variable. So I'm going to do session is equal to new core session. And then right there, we're going to do session auth. And there will be a row that we are authenticating there. So if we go to the model, the session model here, you will notice that we do have the function called auth that we created. So where is that? There it is. So auth right there starts this new session and then just adds the user row that was given in there, just returns a 0. So that's all it does. So auth will just add this row to the session and then redirect to the home page, and that's it. So we are considered logged in at that point. Now we need to get this hash somehow, and this one will come from row password. Unless the password column is named something else, then yep, we may need to change that. But for now, I think it is named quite all right. So here we're going to do row is equal to this, since we are inside the model, this first, like that, and then we look for the email. Now here, things will be a little bit dicey. So what we want to do is we need to know which column we are using to log in, right? So this is user, so we can add more stuff here. Just for the user model, this one model will have this, let's say login column, maybe that's what we're gonna call it. Login unique column. So in our case, this is the email, because sometimes it could be the username, right? Maybe you want to, or the phone number, for example. So you want to be able to just change that and things go as intended, right? So there it is. So here we will put this. Now normally we would say something like email. So we want to find whoever has that email address, like so. And then we're going to say if row, then we will do this. And let's move everything over like that. Okay. Now if things don't go well, then we will redirect. So we will put, what do? We will say this errors is equal to, so we want to put some errors here. If row was not found, then we put an else statement and say this errors email is equal to wrong email or password. Right, same thing here. We put an else statement and put the same error there as well, because we don't want to tell the user which was wrong, whether the email or the password, and then we redirect there. And yeah, I think this actually does it. Now the thing is, if we have our unique column there, then let's utilize that. So we replace every instance where we are calling the email, we're gonna call it that here. So I'm gonna do, where is this here? We start from there, and then it's gonna be this and the column. Let me remove that. But for this thing here, let's remove our quotes in there. We don't need those in there. But for the rest of it, it's gonna work just like, oh no, this one, it won't work. But there, that's fine. Alrighty then. This is great. So now the login should work as well. And let's go back to the login view and let's remove what we don't need. We don't need username, where we need the password. So that's fine. And this one is login page view. Right, there we go. So sign up already works. Let's do login. All right, now to test this properly, let me make sure that the home page is not accessible if you're not logged in, that is. So in order to achieve that, let me go here and grab this from the login, from the logout page, put that in the login, and so we're just gonna ask, is logged in, or is it just logged in? I can't remember now. So we need to put an if statement here to see if session not logged in, then redirect to the login page. So this is how you make sure that the page is not accessible if somebody is not logged in. So let's go to the home page and see how that will work. So it's saying undefined method, so which means there is an is at the beginning, like so. Okay, so clearly we are logged in somehow. So I'm gonna log out of this. Okay, log out. All right, so now let's try to go to the home page, and it takes us to the login page. So that's great. Now let's see if we are able to log in. So I'm gonna try just some wrong details. So wrong email or password. Okay, that's great. Let me remove all of these. Let's see. Oh wait, we are logged in now. How did that happen? Okay, let me go back to the login. If something was posted, then user login. Let's go to the user model and let's see what's happening here. So So login column, so email, if row, else. This is very strange. Okay, I'm gonna put die over here so that I see if it gets to that point. So I want to try and follow up on what's going on. So if I just log in like this, so which means it accepted this value. So why did it accept? Let's try and actually let me do a var dump here. It gives more information. So I want to see the result of that row. Okay, so it does return something, which is weird. Username, password. So username is empty, password. Okay, what's happening? Let me browse here. Okay. So this is the problem. Okay, but why was the password? Oh, even the password is emptiness. Okay, so I think the problem comes from the sign up page, because it seems for some reason we were signed in regardless. So let me do a sign up page here and sign up. Why were we signed in? Oh, I see. Sorry, my bad here. No, actually, I don't actually understand. Sign up. What's going on here? Okay, so let's go back here and let me truncate the data. So operations, truncate to delete everything from there. Alright, so let's try again. Here, let's try a username. Let's try an email. So password should be something. Let's try. Let me see when I go to browse. Okay, so nothing. I think there's errors from the previous try. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so that looks much better. Log in. That failed. That failed. So let's try that one. Let's put the correct password. Okay, so finally it has worked. So as you can see, we have created a base login and sign up system here, which is good. It's just a bare bones version of the original. So let's clean up and make sure that we don't leave things as they are here, especially for the home page. The home page should be accessible without having to log in. Let's also log out of this. Alright, so at least you have this view that's bare bones, just like you have the sign up page, which is a bare bones version of what you can do. So at least like this, it's easy to change the contents of the sign up page and the login page without much fuss, because at least you can use the errors, the stuff that's provided here, just to give you a guide of some kind. Alright, so I think this actually does it, because if we look at what we started with, we've done the login, the sign up, displaying of errors, input validation, unique columns. Okay, so the pagination styles is what's missing. So let's see here if I can add that. So we don't need to do much to add that. Let's see here. Pager. That's the one. So Pager here has these things here. There's a navigation class that you can add. Currently there is none. There's the class for the A tag. So all I need to do is duplicate each one of these guys. And then I can go to the end of it and change the word class to style. We'll call it styles. Okay, so nav styles, UL styles, and so on. So these styles should be empty for now because these are not valid styles. So let's do that, and let's do that. Okay, so that's good. Now the reason we're doing this is because if we load the pagination class, we see that let's try this on the home page, right? Let's go to the home view. And right here, I'm just going to put PHP tags and load things from here. So I'm just going to say pager is equal to new core pager. I've called it page. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just want to display the pagination here. So let's go to our home page and see that in action. So as you can see, this is what we have. We have first page, we have page 1, page 2. So if I click on one of these, you see it moves around like that. So this is all you need to be able to create pages on your page like this. Very convenient. But the way it is right now, it's looking like a list, and I don't like that. So if I had Bootstrap here, this would look like proper buttons because the styles already exist for that. So let's go ahead on the pager thingy here. Let's try and fix that and put these guys in the mix as well. So wherever there is this nav class, for example, we'll put nav styles there as well, just so we can be able to edit them. Now these are public things here, so which means we can access them directly from here, but just doing something like, before we display this, we can do something like page nav styles, for example, and then set some styles right here to style the display that comes next. So let's go down to here and check that out. So as you can see here, there's a nav class, so it's as easy as duplicating this and then change class to styles. So it's a style tag, but these are styles with an S, so let's leave that. It's the same thing here on this one. I'm gonna do Ctrl-Shift-D. I'll put styles, but make sure this one is just style. A list item as well should have, so everywhere there's a class, we just need to duplicate and put a style as well. So Ctrl-Shift-D. Of course, remove that one S there. Okay, so let's go ahead. This is the A tag with a class, but let's give it a style as well. Where is this? Style. Okay, so there we go. We just keep doing this. Let's see here, this link. Okay. So I'm just looking for wherever there are class, this A class. There we go. Just like this one, this list element class. Now here we have to be careful because the opening thingy is here and the closing one is here. So which means when we duplicate, let me duplicate here, we can just put the styles at the beginning here and leave the class to its own devices there. So I'm gonna do this and put styles, change that back to a single style. Okay, and this one here we have the same issue, and let me change this to style. Let me put an S there instead. Okay, so things are good there. We want this one here as well, list item. Let's change any of the two to a styles. Remove that one S. Where is the final one? So there's another class here. So Ctrl+Shift+D. Styles, remove that. All right. What else? Then there's a class there. Okay, I think that does it here. So let's just make sure we haven't changed anything. So refresh. It looks good. Now, for example, I want to change the list, the unordered list, to remove those bullet points, for example. So here, what I would do is, I know I want the unordered list styles. So there, I'm going to just say, first of all, list style should be changed to none. So if we do that, you will see that the bullet points are gone. And then semicolon. So here we're just putting the CSS styles, that's all. Let's put display flex. That should put them in order. And there we go. Then let's put margin here of 10 pixels. We can put 5 pixels on the top, 10 pixels on the side. Let's see how that works. That didn't seem like what I wanted. Let's just do 10 pixel margin here. Let's see that. Oh, it's for the whole thing. Okay. So this is not good. We need a margin for a list, individual list item. So that one is li styles. So here we would do a margin 5 pixel, 10 pixel, left to right. That way we can separate those guys together, as you can see there. Very good. So it's beginning to look like buttons now, so we can actually put border lines here if we want. Just say border solid, thin, something like this. That way you can see the actual buttons. Now the color isn't so great, so let's do a much darker color, something like that. And there it is. You see that? So these are buttons. Actually, we should have put padding instead of margin here. Padding would have been the thing. So let's see. And there it is. So as you can see now, these are legitimate buttons over here. Very nice for your pagination. So this is why we can put that, so we can style it as we wish. Now, in case you have a template where there are actual styles that are for these buttons, instead of using the UL styles, we can use the UL class and put the class names there with a space between them. Okay, so that fixes that. We are done. So if I remove these styles here, then it goes back to what it was, ready for styling. And if you're using Bootstrap, you don't need to do this kind of styling at all, because those are set up to work with Bootstrap already. They already have Bootstrap classes. All right, so I hope you have learned something here. So we have improved our MVC system here. Now it has a few extra features which will really help when we are creating new projects, because I want us to create all kinds of projects using this, especially the templates that I've been creating. I want us to turn them to actual websites, so we will be using a lot of this MVC system. Now we will make more updates, of course. In the next update, we're going to create a command line to help us to create models and migration files and stuff. But as it is, we can still use this the way it is. We'll probably use it with a few projects before I can update it with a command line tool. All right, so I will see you in the next tutorial.